And there it is. All right. Welcome, Laura. I'm so glad that you are here with me in my morning. It's like evening for you, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's the afternoon.
Awesome. So let's just go ahead and do some orientation for our viewers. This is a soul connection call where we're just going to have an open dialogue about a loose topic. And the topic for today is soul aligned wealth. So, Laura, if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Lara Waldman, also known as the Abundance Activator. I'm the author of Money Manifestation Mastery. And I have been in this game of what I like to call integrated wealth, how to create wealth in all areas of your life for many, many years. But I started out as a healer, channel, spiritual coach, just sort of trying to help everyone with everything at all times, and then specialized. But this body of work came to me. I did not come to it. I tell you what, it was the last thing in the world I wanted to talk about was money and business. So it's taken me on a beautiful adventure. But yeah, here we are. It's been
I
an
love
adventure.
that. I love that you've had an adventure with it. And, I'm the same. I've had the same experience. So if you don't know me, I'm Safrianna Lughna, the queer spirit guide, and I help people love themselves more and love each other more by celebrating our unique differences. So, wealth. I totally hear you on that, like trying to help too many people and do all the things, because that's really where I was in my own healing work and practice for a long time. What was that like to have the call be money when you were like trying to be a healer and help all the people?
It was a huge shock. And I would say I had an incredible amount of resistance, confusion, and objections to it. I was like, objection, Your Honor. Like I kept on like, I literally spent 2 years fighting my guidance just with the idea of it. So I kind of came into this work kicking and screaming, I have to say. It was a huge pivot from like my point of view, my beliefs, my ideas. I I had a mountain of money blocks that I didn't even know existed. So that was the first bit, was just like, what? First confusion, then a lot of objections. And then it took a while to convince me why it was a good idea, why it was important. It was a huge pivot from where I was.
Yeah, I mean, healing, when we think of healers, we should think coaching, therapy, shamanism, Reiki, like a lot of these energy based or like doing something in the body. But money, I mean, money's energy.
Mhm.
Money is energy. So when you got this like extra layer in and you got through the objections, like what was some of the wisdom that immediately came through for you?
Well, I mean, the wisdom was stunning. It was absolutely stunning. And actually, that came through right away. I saw it. My brain was super confused. So there was a lot of like crisscross wires and a misalignment around money that was going on in my inner system, my inner
Mhm.
belief system, but also very much in our outer system as well. So, um, yeah, I basically kind of unconsciously rejected it because I didn't want to buy into our current financial system as it was. But what I was shown from I call my wealthy wisdom within, my inner guidance, my soul's wisdom, was what I would call a whole new world of wealth, like what was possible when it came to conscious wealth creation or money on this planet, which was all about, love and generosity and giving and making a difference and using money very consciously and mindfully to impact the lives of others in a positive way,
Yeah.
to build, to create a world that's in alignment with our bodies, with the planet, with each other. It was around unity and consciousness and harmony. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know this was a thing. Like I knew it was a thing outside of the world of money, but I had sort of I had not seen that it was possible to do it with money. And also including myself in that.
Mhm.
So the bit that was very beautiful, but also very confusing, was that I had not been including myself in this whole called the wounded healer. So I was trying to give, but I was not receiving. So I was giving
Yeah.
out, wanting to help everyone with everything. Bit of a rescue complex, maybe save the world, all that stuff. But I wasn't receiving. So the beautiful vision was that I was also receiving. I was also having. I was also allowed to have. and that somehow in the receiving, I was also able to give more and make a greater impact in the world. So it was a really stunning vision. And because I trusted my soul's guidance, I trusted my inner guidance, I built a relationship with that part of myself over many years before this point. I was like paying attention, but also a bit like, what is this? Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. Like, I'm just hearing this is so in alignment with my vision, first of all, just that we can all come together and be unified. And by reallocating the resources in the world, we can lift everybody up. And that's what I'm hearing. Like, you were able to step into the wisdom of money, like the spirit of money, basically saying, like, you can make all of these magical things happen with me, but
Yeah.
you have to be able to receive this deeper level versus the surface level of our system. Capitalism, at least where I live, not great right now. Not a nice system, not providing for most of its people, right? So it can be really like sticky, and I don't want to go near money. Ugh, like money's for rich people that don't give a hoot about anyone else, right? Like this mindset stuff about money that keeps people with a lot of money in power and keeps people that aren't starting off with a lot of money powerless because they don't believe they have that same ability to access the abundance and resources. So I'm curious what comes up for you there. Like, what would you say to people that are dealing with these sticky mindset issues of like, mm,
Yeah, well, I have to say it did take me quite a few years of like interrogation to get to the place that I see now and how I interact with it.
mhm,
It was a big long journey because basically I grew up wealthy. I grew up around money. I didn't know I was wealthy because that was just my normal. And the funny thing when you're around wealthy people is I definitely wasn't the most wealthy, so I didn't feel wealthy, right? There was always people with more money and always people have more. And it's a bit embarrassing now, but it took me a while to sort of realize that. But basically, I had unconsciously rejected the whole kind of material world when I got into the spiritual world because
mhm,
I grew up with wealth, money, and things, and like a very, like, in a way, a lot of like luxury and like kind of a dream life on the physical level. But there was a really big piece missing, and through kind of trauma that I went through, but what I would felt like a lack of love. And I mean, I was loved, but like the lack of real deep kind of connection and intimacy
right,
that was missing. So I went like pendulum swung into this spiritual scene where I felt home for the first time and where I felt connection and where I felt this oneness and I felt like safe and relaxed. And then I was like, well, this is it. Like, it's not about the material world. But what happened was that, like, basically I had two little kids and then we were broke. I had this big vision, no money, and I felt like within this system, like, that I couldn't really go anywhere. I couldn't really do anything. So this is where these conversations with my inner guidance or my soul came in. And basically what I had been shown is that I had rejected the system. And my guidance said to me, Lara, if you want to change the game, you have to play the game. And I was like, what? I was like, real, like, and it was basically showing me how I was in the rejecting of the system. I wasn't able to transform the system. And I was deep
mhm,
in the kind of, alternative scene. And actually it's like, if you want to actually make a difference, you need to get in there and make
mm,
peace with it and stop judging it. And like, basically I again, all this was unconscious. I had so many judgments of rich people, wealthy people, like greedy, bad, all this stuff. And actually what I found is there is so much shadow and BS in the spiritual scene as well. I was like,
yep,
the spiritual community is more judgmental than mainstream. So it's kind of interesting.
yeah, it
So
is. It's very interesting.
because we are human beings, right? We all have shadow. This is what I started to see is like, we like to project out, that's bad, you're bad, I'm not.
Yep.
What I call spiritual superiority, that I'm a higher vibration of consciousness than someone else. And I'm like, all that was just from the soul level, is like, we just clear all of that and you
Mhm.
come in and come into connection, which meant really coming into connection with a lot of pain, because our financial system, right, has been built off a lot of pain, right? A lot of
Mhm.
historical, ancestral pain and hurt and harm, but also, what happens when we're coming from a place of lack and scarcity and not enough? We go and we take, right? We go and and there's a huge kind of misalignment of power and misuse of power. But my guidance was showing me how we do this in a different way, which was all about power, but working with power consciously and mindfully as I call it conscious wealth creation.
Mhm.
So it's been very confusing for my brain, because it was like, well, how do we work within a wounded system, but getting in it, trying to shift, change, grow, and evolve it, and it's imperfect. um,
Mhm.
and it took me a long time to sort of understand. So I was guided into the world of business, I was guided into the world of money, I was guided into the world of investing, and it was like, you just got to get in there, figure out how this works, and then you can start figuring out how to shift and change it through
Mhm.
my body, through my business, through my bank account. So that is my kind of big money mission now, is like, we transform the financial system, one body, one business, one bank account at a time. So that's sort of where I am now, is really like, I get deeply stressed by what happens on the planet, but I always go back into that soul's wisdom of like, well, what am I being guided to do? Like, what can I actually do?
Mhm.
And what's my little piece, and what's my little next step?
Yeah, what is mine to do? That's a question I've been asking a lot of myself lately, and I think it's a great question for all of us to ask, like, what is my part to do? And understanding, yeah, like we have all the shadow stuff. Every single one of us has the shadow stuff that we bring to the table, and it influences our perception of the now and therefore can influence our choices. So how do we step into awareness and empowerment with it so we can make empowered choices that move us forward, that move us towards unity, towards our personal goals, towards better relationships. I think it's so I love that you acknowledged like you grew up with wealth and but you didn't realize it, because
Mhm.
I think that's really really important to point out and discuss a little bit, because I grew up in poverty and kind of aware of it, because like we skipped meals, we didn't have new clothes,
Yeah.
but I also didn't know that that wasn't normal
Right.
until I got a little older and could kind of wrap my head around that. So it doesn't matter which end of the spectrum you individually are from. You could be completely in poverty and not have resources, or have tons of resources at your disposal and not have the awareness of everyone else's place and
Mm.
what they're going through. And that's part of this human journey, right? As we explore ourselves, we realize that we may be projecting our experience outward and that other people are having different experiences. And that's like part of our expansion process. It's an important part. So it's worthy to say like, yeah, I didn't know. I don't think it's embarrassing at all. I think it's like good. We have the self-awareness now. Um so regardless of where someone has come from, we're coming in with all of our junk, our baggage, our shadows related to whatever our circumstances were. And we've all experienced trauma,
Yeah.
all of us.
This is it. Even the very wealthy people and the very poor people. It's just different. It's a different sort of, it's just different experiences. But I think
Mhm.
this is, for me, it's about coming back to our like humanity,
Mhm.
right? That we're human beings all having different experiences
Yeah.
and trying to not other. So for me, a lot of this has been around removing the othering.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and there's a lot. Obviously, we could probably talk for hours about all of this. But the other thing that just coming from wealth and coming from money, what's been really interesting is actually how disempowering it was for me. Even though I have a lot of privilege, and acknowledging my privilege was a really powerful and painful process, right?
Mhm.
Because you can still feel, even in wealth, still feel a lot of lack and scarcity. And that's the thing, is like, you don't necessarily go around feeling abundant just because you have money or you have money around you. Like, there's still lack and scarcity.
Yes.
And there's the privilege that I didn't even know I had. But there was also disempowerment within that privilege, because I just was born into it. I didn't learn
Mhm.
to create it. I didn't understand how it worked. So that basically created an entitlement, where I was like, when I was
Mm.
in my 20s, I was like, what? Like, why can't I go skiing? Like, it was a bit like, I had no, it was just, that was my normal. being in that kind of wealth and what I would call wealth and luxury now was my normal. But I
Yeah.
didn't know how to make it. I didn't know how to build it. So I think
Yeah.
it's an entitlement, and it's also it created a sense of actually made like a lot of my family members are quite my generation were quite disempowered financially, ironically, because we kind of thought, well, the money's just going to be there. It's just going to be there, and it's actually,
Mhm.
oh no, and then you're like, no, it's not just going to be there. So that was also slightly embarrassing to realize and be like, oh my goodness. So my big passion is around empowerment and self-empowerment. And there's education and there's lack of education and there's like lack of
Mhm.
financial education and a lack of understanding about money and how it works. It's actually incredibly simple. And it's like this great like secret. It's like all of it's sort of like seemingly hidden. It's like the haves and the have nots, but it's like, it's really the psychology of money and wealth is endlessly fascinating to me. And we all
Mhm.
have our own like unique experience within it. But this is part of the dismantling, is trying to understand what is running my thinking, what is running my beliefs, what is running my
Mhm.
basically my passion is how do we transform our relationship with money and learn how to work with it,
Right.
let it work with you, and see where we create like separation from it, right,
Yes.
against it, or it's
Yeah.
endlessly fascinating.
We can absolutely resist money coming in. We can sabotage ourselves to not put ourselves in situations where we can invite abundance in. Like there's all kinds of stuff to unpack to get clarity on what's really going on with that flow.
Yeah,
I'm curious, as you say, like there is a simplicity to this.
yeah.
If you choose to get into the simplicity of this, for someone that was really struggling, like if you were working with someone who's really struggling and they're stuck in scarcity mindset, like they just like that is really hard to jolt out of their scarcity mindset. How would you work with them? Like what would you guide them to explore in themselves? Because I think that's probably the thing I run into the most with clients is like I I'm so in the scarcity mindset, like I'm gripping and I'm afraid. Like what would be something that helps them?
Yeah, well, I've got a process. My money manifestation mastery methodology is basically designed to help you with that. So the interesting about scarcity and scarcity mindset is you can have scarcity mindset at every level of wealth. It's not just about how much money is in your bank account. It's actually not connected to money really at all. It seems like it is, but it's a deeper thing. And I've spent a long time being like this energy detective trying to understand it. Because you can have money and still be in lack. You can have
Mhm.
money and still experience scarcity or like basically total financial panic. So, and for me, where we start going in scarcity is we're really looking at trauma.
Mhm.
We're really looking at what I would call the wound of separation, where there's a part of us that is disconnected. We're disconnected from ourselves, we're disconnected from life, and we're in separation with ourselves, and we're in separation with life at its kind of core root. And there's been a sever of connection. And that's where I find scarcity lives. Also lives in our survival brain. So that part of us that goes into survival, which is like that kind of like default kick in anytime we
Mhm.
feel safe. So if there's a threat around safety, that can activate our scarcity mindset as well. But it's actually not connected to money.
Hmm.
Money can be the trigger, and
Yeah.
money can be an act. Like I see money as an activator, or money can be a trigger of it, but the core wound is deeper than money. So money is very much like the surface symptom of a much deeper and richer process. So the hard thing about this level of conversation is we're in a blind spot, we're in the unconscious. But for me, when we're in that scarcity or lack, it's about going deeper and under it. So I've developed sort of a sort of simple 5-step process to help kind of navigate through what you could call like that survival brain or the scarcity mindset and tap into the wealth, your inner wealth and abundance that lives inside of you,
Mhm.
which money is a part of, but it's not everything. Abundance, you can have a financial abundance, but you can also have abundance in other areas, or you can have financial wealth, but you can also have wealth in other areas as well. So we want to
Right.
tap into this deeper, richer resource. But we tend to like our brains tend to hyper focus on you know, the external things. Obviously we need it. We exchange with money at this time. So like there's very real scarcity in terms of like
Yeah.
not being able to pay your bills or not being able to eat and all that stuff. But what's interesting is I work, you know, with people who have money, but they'll still, their nervous system is still in that survival, you know, fight or
I don't
flight.
have enough. I don't
Yeah,
have enough. I don't have enough. And yeah, that gripping that I described.
yeah,
Um, so one of our viewers says, wealth being a physical representation of life force trips me out. The concept of time being valuable and then quantified into currency that we try to maximize gathering of is 100% hard for me to see the good in. So I'm hearing in that comment, like sort of an hourly wage working sort of mentality. I'm curious if there's anything, Laura, that you want to comment on there.
how would, is there a question in there?
Yeah. Oh, I'm guess the question I would be is like, how can we view wealth? Because I view wealth as life force.
Mhm.
So how do we not quantify it or get caught in gathering it? Like, how do we be in it instead of being in the gathering it? He says not. There's not really a question. It's a commentary, but I think that's like the question in there for me is how do we get out of that state of mind of my time my time is valuable and so I need to like be bringing in resources at a certain rate or like gathering them. How do we get out of that like I have to gather them to me mode? Because that's what I think a lot of people get stuck in is like I
Yeah,
have to work.
it's really honestly, there's a lot to untangle. There's a lot of kind of confusion, I think, and a lot of like, you know, indoctrination into certain ideas and points of views, and a lot of it is around value and self-value. So it's like how you value your time, how you value your energy, and how you value your money, and that like exchange of money and time and value and all of that. So there's a lot to unpick and there's a lot to undo. And the truth of the journey is it's like, you know, a slow process.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of the ways that I figured out how to navigate it, because it was like this time for money thing, right? Like how I work, I get paid by the hour or paid by, you know, and basically when you're actually in like wealth creation, people don't tend to think like that. You know, you don't think about being paid by the hour or
Mm-hmm.
like an hourly rate, an hourly wage. So it's like, it's actually really shifting your mindset and your beliefs and opening up to new possibilities when it comes to wealth creation. So obviously it's easier when you run your, well, it's easier and harder when you like run your own business, you're an entrepreneur, because you can start to like build and create. So how I did it was my inner guidance, or I call the wealthy wisdom within, showed me like what to create in my business, how to package it,
Mm-hmm.
how to price it. Where my limited thinking was like, well, this is just what you can charge. This is what you are worth. And so part of it is about an inner journey of really like reconnecting to your worth. So some of the core patterns of like our money blocks is not feeling enough and not
Mm-hmm.
feeling good enough and not feeling deserving. And you cannot put a price tag on your worth. So like your worthiness isn't like, you can't it's not determined by how much money you have or don't have. And I think that's part of the first thing is like understanding your worthiness,
Mm-hmm.
and that worthiness, like who you are, is priceless. You can't really put a price tag on that. But
Yeah.
when you, I call it own your worth, own your wealth, that when you come back to a place of deep self-worth and deep self-honoring, then how you think about things changes. How you think about how you spend your time and spend your money and spend your energy comes from a very, very different place. But there's quite a lot of rewiring of old ways of thinking and believing and perceiving that's very deeply like hardwired in basically the family you grew up in, the society you grew up in, the experience that you had, the culture that you had. Um, and there's a lot of unpicking to do. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really not, you know, and again, there's different sort of models. There's different like financial models of like how to make money, how to earn money. Like there's like all these different ways that you can look at it and see it. But the way that I figured out how to do it was tapping into like what I call my like the wealthy wisdom within, this inner guidance, this and that's the part of me that's navigated me through out of the scarcity and not enough
Yeah.
and like kind of what I would call limited thinking, um, based on like what we see in the world of what's possible or what's not possible, or available or not available.
Right. Yeah. And that's your speaking to the soul alignment because you have come to realize that you can tune into that. You can go in and get those answers. And that's really hard for some people to unpack if they've always looked for the answers outside of themselves. They've
Yeah.
always sought, I know I've certainly spun up and like, oh, I'm going to take this course and then that class and then I'm going to go do this workshop. I'm going to like trying to scramble to get all of the knowledge of what everyone else is doing to get it right on their side, but like my answer is going to be different for me. So I need to go there first and get that wisdom from within. And then maybe I realize like, oh, well, actually my inner guidance system is telling me we do need to get help
Yeah.
because this is what we need to learn. But then I'm going at it not from this like, oh, I don't have enough. I need to take all the information into, okay, what is it exactly that I need with clarity? Okay, now I'm going to just go pursue that course of action.
Yeah. It's a bit of both, right? Because one of the money blocks I see is like, I just need another certificate, I just need another degree, I just need to do another course, then I will, so that's another way of manifesting not worthy. But there might be a course, like we still need to learn. I
Yeah,
love learning. I
me
love
too.
investing in education and learning and growth and development. I mean, I think that's one of the best places to invest, because no one can take away your education, right?
Right.
But it's like it's not so much what you're doing, it's how you're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's where you're doing it from. And I think
Right.
this is the thing. It's not really about money or not money. It's about your relationship with yourself within life, and your relationship with yourself within money, and your sense of worthiness and deserving within that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so much there. It's extraordinary. It's why I never get bored with this work, because there's just so much to unpick. But it's then really like, what is that next? I call it your next step aligned action. Like, what is that thing that's going to bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be financially? And yeah, education is going to be part of it. Unlearning is going to be part of it.
So much unlearning.
Yeah, dismantling, because we're dismantling a very wounded system. So this is part of it. Like, we need to transform any system, we have to transform. Like, this is what my guidance has always said: you don't like the external system, find where that lives within you and dismantle it.
Yeah.
So it's like that system lives inside of us. So we like to think we're separate. We like to think but we're all interconnected. So it's like, my guidance is always like, just find where that lives within you and dismantle it.
Yes. And I mean, that goes across the board for so many things we need to dismantle.
Yep.
So many things.
Yeah. So like, all the work with our kind of wounded financial system, like white supremacy is a part of that dismantling. For example, the patriarchal system is a part of that. And so having, as you know, as a white privileged woman as well, it was like, fuck, that's been painful shit to sort of dismantle from my nervous system. And all of it, I mean, so much. And there's so much to dismantle, but it's all interconnected. It's all interconnected, because we need to come back home to, this is really a coming back home to who you are, and coming back home to your power,
Right.
And not power over, right? It's not that the version of power we've been shown is a dominant power, a power that hurts and harms. It's a power of creation, our ability to create and co-create. And it's a life-giving. So it's choosing to use that power in a life-giving way rather than a life-taking way.
Yeah, well, I think of just my stance on unity, like that I see us all as one unified whole, like cells in a body, right? That's the universe to me. It's just all cells in a larger body, organs in a larger body, whatever, however you want to view it. And there is no superiority in that, but there is individuality in the unity. And so we each have to take care to nurture ourselves and our core nature and recognize our worth so that we can put that back out into the world. Because if what's in here is I'm not worth it, then chances are we also are holding that other people aren't worth it too, for whatever reason. And that is, I love that because as you were talking, I was like, yep, the patriarchy and, racism and all of these things that we have to dismantle. I love that you spoke to it. Like, those do have an impact on the allocation of wealth into the world and like the flow. And there are systems that some people are going to have a harder time dismantling because the system is literally geared towards them, which is where those of us that are in places of privilege get to walk that path. And by walking that path, invite other people to walk on that path too, to begin to dissolve the separation, to begin to dissolve the walls that keep certain people from accessing certain things. And
Yeah.
so there's so much, like, this is bigger than just, does our bank account look secure? Right? It's literally, are we having the impact that we can in the world in a bigger way by being in a harmonious, balanced relationship with our wealth, like health as wealth, wealth as wealth, wealth as whatever you want it to be, but like your sense of abundance, and
Mhm.
then be able to offer it to others.
Yeah, and for me, what my guidance said is like, if you want to like see change in the world and create change in the world, you need to be well resourced. So for me, with my nervous system, like I use money to fuel myself, to support myself so that I can create and make an impact. And when I didn't have any money, it limited my impact. So right now it's like money is power.
Yep.
But it's like, how do we use that really consciously and mindfully to create positive change in the world? And so I was always like, my guidance was when I was like broke, like hippie healer. It was like, we want you to be bringing in like multi-millions coming through your business, like that's where you're going. And I was like, what? Very, very confusing. But what I didn't understand, it was like, it's about actually using that the power of the privilege I have to make a difference in a way that my language is heart, body, soul aligned wealth, as
Mm-hmm.
best as I possibly can, with all my flaws and faults as well, right? And so that's really it for me. It's a real coming home to our power, but understanding the interconnectedness of all of life, and doing like whatever we can through this big huge mess, to help us come back to our humanity and come back into connection. But there's just so much othering and so much separation, and so anyways, that's what I'm trying to do.
I love it. I'm here for it. I mean, my brand is uplifting the others. Like Living Luna's slogan is uplifting the others, and that's, yeah. Like, we eventually want to be a brand that is moving lots of money so we can reallocate and help people in need. Like, we already we're in the hippie healer stage right now as a company, and we're already doing scholarships. Like, we're already taking donations to offer people in need of niche coaching or therapy services to get access to that. And that's the kind of impact we can have when we're willing to do this inner work and renegotiate our relationship. So thank you for all that you do. And if people are like really intrigued by this, you have a book, so people could pick up the book and dive into that, but they
Yeah.
can also work directly with you.
Yeah, so I also have a podcast which launched recently called Money Manifestation Mastery, and I've got all my steps in there as well. So if you like to listen, check out my podcast. It's on like all the different podcast platforms. You can get my book. I've got a lot of resources on my YouTube channel as well. And of course, I've got like lots. I like to give a lot of free resources. So I've got something called my Wealth Retreat. I've got free master classes. So you could come over to my website, larawaldman.com, tap into the free resources that I have. Of course, if you want to dive in deeper together, there's different ways that we can work together. But I think first come in and like tap the work, come and have an
Yeah.
experience of it, start to play with it. And then, tap in the free resources for now, and then we can have a call.
Yeah. And that's something like, if you're not willing to engage with the free resources yet, you might not be willing to go deep into your money mindset stuff. So they're there. They are there. Laura is you're such a giver. I mean, I just have to say that. And you put so much education and just love and care into the world and what you do and how you talk about money. So thank you for what you do and the impact that you have. It's very appreciated.
Well, thank you so much. It's a great honor to be able to share all this with you all.
So thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you to those of you who watched live. If you caught the replay, let us know. And otherwise, you know where to find us. Everyone can have access to the soul aligned wealth, to the wisdom system within, to dismantling, to doing big work. So know that you're not alone and that we see you, we believe in you, and we want what is best for you and for all. All right.